In life, there are some wounds that time just won't heal. In the entertainment industry, one of the prime examples is Game of Thrones' final season, which aired, it's hard to believe, I know, half a decade ago now. The reasons why this show fell apart have been discussed at length by people far more perceptive and eloquent than I am, so I won't dive back into the specifics. Rather, I'm here to talk about just how important a show's ending is, and how Season 8, and to a lesser extent, Season 7 of Game of Thrones permanently tarnished the whole show's reputation. I still remember when the show was an absolute media sensation. The actors and actresses were appearing constantly on every talk show there is. HBO was taking in fat stacks for every season, and the producers and creators of the show, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, were heaped with awards, given offers to produce massive budget films, and were generally seen as the people who could do no wrong when it came to television. It used to be possible to say proudly that your favourite television show was Game of Thrones and not look like an idiot or a tool. It truly seemed like we were living in the golden age of television and fantasy television specifically. Yet it still sometimes shocks me just how total and sudden the collapse of the biggest show in history really was. Truly, I'd say until episode 3 of season 8, no one could have even conceived of the total ignominy that would envelop the term Game of Thrones. Yet it did. It took just 4 utterly garbage, rushed, nonsensical, and supremely disappointing episodes to undo and tarnish the reputation of the entire 70 episode, multi award winning masterpiece. Now, that's not to say everything was rosy in the show before season 8, far from it. Things began to go wrong after they ran out of source material, though that is the fault of a certain Mr. Martin. And there were plenty of warning signs in season 7, yet, much like an earthquake, it only dawned on the audience at large during the final season. And boy, was the reaction bad. Even professional critics, used to sucking up to everything the entertainment industry spews out, called the show out for its ending, whilst the fans were absolutely livid. And, whilst that reaction was certainly deserved, I cannot help but feel bad for the folks behind the show. I mean, the first 4 seasons I will always consider to be some of the finest television ever produced, and the show as a whole is still one of my favourites, but there can be no denying that, to much of the general public, the disaster of season 8 tarnished years and years of work and dedication from everyone involved. The bad ending of the show seemed to shatter the fan base as well. In comparison, despite being over 20 years old now, and the books are over 70, the LOTR fan base is still alive and seemingly stronger than ever. Meanwhile, despite being just 5 years old, the Game of Thrones fan base is split into 3 sections. The first are the so-called real fans, who have fond memories of the good old days and bitter ones of the ending. The second are the general audiences, who either have forgotten about the show completely or else spend their time posting various meaningless House Stark appreciation posts. The third is the section of the fan base that genuinely are in denial about how bad the show's ending was, and instead insisted it was actually a hidden masterpiece. When asked to defend their views, they usually resort to saying, "You didn't understand Game of Thrones," as if that's somehow an argument.
You think you're the smartest man there is? That everyone alive has to bow and scrape and lick your boots.
My father.
And if you get in any trouble, all you've got to do is say...
You didn't understand Game of Thrones.
That's it. All your troubles are gone.
And finally, let us take a moment to think about the effect Season 8 had on Benioff and Weiss themselves, who, thanks to their decision to take over the writing of Season 8, have become, essentially, figures of fun and objects of mockery. What must that do to a man, To go from being at the very top of the entertainment industry to having your names literally become used to describe failures and incompetence. I can't help but feel really bad for them. At the end of the day, they gave us the show to begin with, and 4 excellent seasons of television. They ought to be cherished and held in high esteem like Peter Jackson is for his LOTR films. And that's why the utter destruction of their reputation, and that of the show as a whole, is so sad. Yet, at the end of the day, it was their atrocious writing and decision to make the final season so short that is the reason for their present situation, and for that they have no one to blame but themselves.